graphing is an important skill in economics. You want to try to graph cause and effect relationships so you can make predictions and explain connections in economics. And you should be able to read a graph like a sentence. When you're reading the textbook, you can get bogged down in economics. There are no real proper nouns, people, places, things. It's all conceptual. So when you're bogged down, you should pay special attention to the graph. Let's take a demand curve, for example. In some situations, price can determine quantity, and in other situations, quantity can determine price. But a demand curve, if we go y equals mx plus b, a demand curve is a negative relationship between price and quantity. So changes in the one variable will cause a change in the other variable. But this isn't really truly complete for the real world. There's another thing that in statistics they call an error value. In economics we call it all others. All other things that influence y that are not x. Now, there's an important word in economics called ceteris paribus, and it means all else constant. So when you build a model, if you want to use this variable to explain this variable, you have to hold this constant. All right? And then when that happens, you move from one point on the line to another. Maybe P1, Q1, P2, Q2. But if this happens, y equals mx plus b plus this other value, and x is constant, then it's this value that's causing this change. Your model has broken down. And what you do here is, what happens here is, the demand curve shifts. So at any one price, right, let's not get worked up about x and y for right now. So let's just say that this variable is constant. It's no longer explaining this change from Q1 to Q2. So this one is changing. Now that's going to happen in chapter after chapter in economics. You'll read the first couple of pages of a textbook, or you'll look at the notes for the first couple of pages, and it'll go on and on about how this variable is causing a change in this variable. And then they'll have this relationship. Immediately after that, they'll spend a page or two talking about other things besides this that affect these things. And when this changes, you get a new line. You get a shift in the line. And if you can understand that, then every chapter will be easy to understand, because it can be very confusing. If you're telling me this affects this, now you're telling me it doesn't affect this, that these other things are affecting it. And the reason we do this is because often models are two-dimensional, because paper is two-dimensional, for example. So we have the one variable we want to focus on causing a change in the other, and everything else that affects y is held constant. And then we have this predictive relationship. But life is rarely so simple as having only two-dimensional models. So if the variable you picked is not changing, but it's the other things that are changing, you have a shift in demand. So if you remember your 8th grade algebra class, this is a negative relationship because y equals mx plus b. The slope of this line is negative. When one goes down, the other is going up. A positive relationship is like a supply curve. When one value goes up, the other value goes up. So this is just a brief review of graphing skills, which is essential for economics.